At some point or another, you've probably come across the quote by Charles Darwin that goes something along the lines of, it's not the strongest nor fastest that survives. It's the one that's most adaptable to change. And to be fair, there are different variations of this quote, but they all essentially say the same thing. So what I'm going to do for you in this video is explain this in way more detail, but I'm going to make it more applicable to the 21st century because obviously times have changed. And if you study nature, what you'll tend to find is that it doesn't reward past success. It doesn't reward your plans. It doesn't reward how impressive you once were. It rewards one thing, and that is your ability to adapt to a changing environment. So let's get into the video. If you want proof that it's not the biggest and strongest that survives, but it's the most adaptable, look no further than dinosaurs. Dinosaurs were big, powerful animals, but what happened was conditions changed. And the dinosaurs didn't adapt to these new conditions and eventually become extinct. If you look at the food chain, it's us humans that are at the top of the food chain. But if you compare us to other animals, we're far from the strongest, we're not the biggest, and we're certainly not the fastest. But you could say we're the most adaptable. Human beings are very good at getting together and working together as a team. And that is probably one of our biggest strengths. And the law of the jungle, if that's what you want to call it, doesn't just apply to nature, it applies to the business world as well. For example purposes, you've got threats everywhere. You've got potential lawsuits. You've got competitors that might see you as a problem because you're taking customers away from them. You have to form relationships with people and collaborate so that both of you can get ahead. Do you see what I mean? There are comparisons. And a perfect example in the business world of a company not moving with the times is Blockbuster. Blockbuster was once the top dog. It was the go-to place if you wanted to rent videos or DVDs. But then Netflix come along and changed the game. Netflix went fully online, whereas Blockbuster didn't. You could say Blockbuster stood still and did nothing. And it paid a massive price because, according to my research, there's only one Blockbuster store left. Its downfall is quite frankly unbelievable. And every single business owner should study it. And the reason why is because it is the perfect example of a company not moving with the times and not adapting. And if you don't do those things, you die. There's a quote on the internet and it goes something along the lines of, you're either growing or you're dying. There's no middle ground. And there's an element of truth to that. And what you'll tend to find with people who are highly adaptable is that they deliberately expose themselves to new challenges, new ideas, and new environments. In today's day and age, you have to be open minded, you have to be flexible. You have to be constantly updating your knowledge because the world is changing so quickly. Let's just compare 1996 to 2026. The world is completely different because of the internet. It's a completely different world. Just imagine what the world will look like in another 30 years' time. It's probably going to be different. Another good example of this is how the job market has changed. It's completely different. Prior to the internet, if you applied for a job, you was only competing with those in your country and immediate area. Now you're competing with the rest of the world because of the internet. Let's say, for example purposes, right? You've got a customer service job, and let's say the firm is in America, the UK, Australia, or whatever first world country. And let's say you've got a woman in Thailand who speaks perfect English. She can type just as quickly on a keyboard as you, and she's not asking for as much money because the cost of living in Thailand is cheaper. In a way, she's got a bit of an advantage over you. Do you see what I mean? How things have changed. You have to be constantly updating your knowledge and you have to be moving with the times because once AI and machines fully kick in, again, the world is going to be completely different. When it comes to strength versus resilience, there's an old fable that explains this perfectly, and that is the oak tree versus the bamboo tree. So to cut a long story short, right, you've got a forest and there's two trees side by side together. The oak tree, the bamboo tree. And on the surface, right, the oak tree is big, powerful and strong. It's got these big, meaty trunks. On the other hand, you've got this bamboo tree which looks skinny, looks frail, looks fragile, doesn't look very strong. Put it this way, right? If you had to put your bets on which tree would fall over first due to bad weather conditions, you would probably bet on the bamboo tree falling over. But here's what actually happens when a storm hits. When the storm hits both trees, right? It's not the oak tree that's standing, it's actually the bamboo tree that's left standing. Basically what happens, right, is when the storm hits, the oak tree just stands there and does nothing. It doesn't adapt, doesn't change. Whereas the bamboo tree does. It bends with the wind. It changes form. And this is why the bamboo tree is left standing and the oak tree is not. This is a perfect example of resilience versus strength. And the same thing kind of applies to the human body because you're only as physically capable as your spine is mobile, stable, and pain free. It's all well and good being a big, strong power lifter. It's all well and good being the oak tree. But if you ain't doing the softer side of training, like mobility work, and working on correcting your posture, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. If we're talking purely from a physical fitness perspective, it's much better to be a generalist than be a specialist. And this leads me perfectly onto the next point. The perfect example of this in nature is the panda bear, because all the panda bear eats is bamboo. It's very rare that a panda bear will eat anything else. And at the moment, this is all well and good because bamboo is abundant, it's everywhere. But let's say conditions change and bamboo becomes scarce. What does the panda bear do then? This is how animals become extinct. And the same also applies to humans as well because the job market is changing. For example purposes, we all know that AI and machines is coming in. In fact, it's already here. There are already driverless taxis. So in the future, the job of a taxi driver will probably be gone. The same thing can probably be said for bus drivers, truck drivers, tram drivers, train drivers. The list could go on. Like, I live in the UK, right, and a gas station near me used to be manned. There were people on site. Now there's nobody there. It's all automated. You go to the pump, you put your card in the machine, you fuel up, and then you leave. And to be fair, the customer actually benefits because it's actually quicker doing it that way, and the company benefits as well because it doesn't have to pay people to work there. Another example is at my local supermarket, there was a robot cleaner going around the store cleaning it. The first thing I thought when I seen it was that robot has took somebody's job. And here's the thing. It isn't just low-skilled jobs like cleaning and retail. It's also happening in the tech industry as well. And these are people with advanced degrees, highly educated, and they're losing their jobs to AI.